Welcome to the Mayhemporium, the podcast that delves into the world of the spooky, the bizarre, and the macabre. Join us as we explore true crime stories that will send shivers down your spine and uncover mysteries that will keep you guessing until the very end. Our episodes will take you on a journey through the dark and twisted world of the unexplained, featuring topics ranging from haunted houses and ghostly encounters to unsolved crimes and strange occurrences. So sit back, relax, and get ready for a thrill ride as we unravel the mysteries of the unknown. Welcome to Mayhemporium. Hello, and welcome to the Mayhemporium, the podcast that brings you the most bizarre, strange, and unusual cases from around the world. I'm your host, Jennifer Chambers, and in this episode, we're going to dive into the Pacific Northwest region of the United States, where some of the most unusual criminals have made their mark. Our first case is the Barefoot Bandit. Colton Harris Moore was a teenage criminal who stole boats, cars, and even airplanes. He gained notoriety for going barefoot while committing crimes. Harris Moore's criminal escapades spanned several states and even reached into the Bahamas, where he was finally caught and extradited to the United States. Colton Harris Moore, who was also known as the Barefoot Bandit, was a notorious criminal. Born on March 22, 1991. He was raised on Camano Island, Washington. His life of crime began at an early age, and he quickly gained notoriety for his daring and unique style of theft. He was called the Barefoot Bandit because some of his crimes were committed while barefoot. He had once left behind 39 chalk footprints and the word "see ya" at one of the scenes. It was a clever name, but most often, actually, while he was committing crimes, he wore shoes. Officials said that repeatedly, but he kept the nickname. It was very catchy. Colton Harris Moore had a troubled childhood. His mother reportedly was an alcoholic, and his father was absent for most of his life, having been imprisoned for drug-related charges. When he was 7 years old, Colton started running away to live in the woods himself. He stole most of the things he needed to live from vacation homes in the area, and he was eventually caught 4 times before age 13. Tim McGurk wrote an article for Time magazine called America's Most Wanted Teenage Bandit in December 2009. It reported several calls having been made to Child Protective Services about Colton, and that one day, after some kind of argument while they were at a family barbecue at their home, Colton's father just walked away into the forest, and he was never heard from again. He was caught and imprisoned, but he didn't come back to the family. At the age of 12, Colton started breaking into homes on Camano Island. Over the next few years, he became more daring, stealing cars, boats, and planes. He even taught himself to fly by reading flight manuals and watching instructional videos. By the time he was 18, Colton Harris Moore had become a legend in the Pacific Northwest. He had stolen over 100 cars, boats, and planes, and committed dozens and dozens of burglaries. He became known as the Barefoot Bandit because his bare feet, of course, left no footprints, which made it difficult for the police to track him down. During this time, his mom would speak to him on the phone occasionally, but she seemed to see no problem with what he was doing, according to an interview for KATU television in 2009. She said, after one time she purchased him an expensive bike when he was a child, people were suspicious. Quote, every time he had anything any good, everyone thought he stole it, unquote, she said. Quote, what does that do to a kid, unquote. In 2010, Colton Harris Moore made national headlines when he stole a single-engine plane from an airport in Indiana, and he flew it all the way to the Bahamas. He crash landed the plane on the island of Great Abaco, but managed to avoid the police for several days before he was finally captured. Colton Harrismore was sentenced to 7 years in prison for his crimes, but he became sort of a folk hero to many people. Some saw him as a modern day Robin Hood, stealing from the rich to give to the poor, while others admired his audacity and his ability to outsmart the police at every turn. Colton Harrismore was released from prison in 2016, and he has since turned his life around. He now works as a motivational speaker, and he's written a book about his life of crime. Some people still view him as a criminal, while others see him as a reformed man who has paid his debt to society. 20th Century Fox purchased the film rights in April 2010 to the book The Barefoot Bandit, The True Tale of Colton Harrismore, New American Outlaw, by author Bob Friel. It has not been made. As a result of his plea deal, he is not allowed to profit from his crimes. This story was also made into the Barefoot Bandit documentary in 2014 by filmmaker Carly Bodmer. Next up, we're going to talk about the bizarre case of the Portland Pooper. This is a strange story that happened in 2019, and it's left many people scratching their heads. So let's dive right in. It all started in May of 2019 when residents of the Portsmouth neighborhood in Portland, Oregon began to notice something strange happening. Someone was leaving piles of human feces in the middle of the street or on sidewalks and even on people's driveways. It was always left uncovered, and it was clear that the person responsible was doing it on purpose. The residents of Portsmouth were understandably upset, and they began to take matters into their own hands. They set up surveillance cameras and even went door to door asking if anyone knew who was responsible. But despite their best efforts, the culprit remained elusive. This elusive person continued to strike throughout the summer of 2019. It became more frequent to have incidents in people's homes and driveways, and they were often left in more public places. It unfortunately got to the point where the police had to get involved. The Portland Police Department launched an investigation into the case, and they even offered a $1,000 reward for any information that could lead to an arrest. But still, nothing came up. The perpetrator remained at large. Finally, in September of 2019, the police received a break in the case. They were able to identify the perpetrator as a 47-year-old woman named Suspect 1. Suspect 1 was a resident of Portsmouth. It's unclear why this person was leaving these piles in public places, but is believed to be some kind of a statement or protest. The police were able to arrest her, and she was charged with offensive littering and disorderly conduct. The bizarre case of the Portland Pooper came to a close, but it left many people with more questions than answers. Why would someone do something like this? And why did it take so long to catch the culprit? It just goes to show that sometimes even the strangest crimes can happen in the most unexpected places. Our next case is the tale of the Canine Con Man. This is a bizarre story that happened in 2018, and it involves a man who conned people into giving him their dogs. It all started in the summer of 2018. Residents of Spokane, Washington began to notice something very strange happening. Someone was going door to door, and he claimed to be a dog trainer, and he would offer to train people's dogs for a fee. But instead of training the dogs, the man would just take the dogs and never return them to their owners. So these residents of Spokane began to be pretty alarmed, and they set up a watch system. They even went door to door, warning their neighbors about this scam artist. But despite their best efforts, the con man remained on the prowl. The Canine Con Man, as he became to be known, continued to strike throughout the summer of 2018. He took dogs from yards, parks, and then he started even taking some from people's homes. The cases were reported, of course, but eventually the Spokane Police Department were able to identify the canine con man as a 34-year-old male suspect. This suspect did have a long history of criminal activity, including fraud, theft, and drug possession. They were finally able to arrest this male suspect in August of 2018, and he was then charged with multiple additional counts of theft and fraud. The funny thing is, this man was caught trying to sell a fake service dog vest to a woman who wanted to bring her pet on an airplane. That's awful. This man's history of scamming people eventually got him charged with more fraud. And it turned out that he had stolen over 20 dogs from unsuspecting owners, and many of these dogs were never recovered. That's so sad. The canine con man was eventually sentenced to 5 years in prison for his crimes, and the stolen dogs that were found were returned to their rightful owners. It's hard to believe that someone would try to profit from selling fake service dog vests, but this is just another of the many bizarre cases we've seen in the Pacific Northwest. For our next case, we're going to talk about the Seattle Streaker of 2013. This is a super bizarre story that made headlines around the world, and it involves a man who ran naked through the streets of Seattle. It all started on the evening of June 21st, 2013, when residents of Seattle began to notice something unusual happening in the downtown area. A man completely naked was running through the streets, and he was dodging cars and pedestrians alike. The Seattle Streaker, as he became to be known, ran through the city for over an hour. He covered a distance of almost 3 miles naked. He ran through crowded streets, busy intersections, and even through a large public fountain. The Seattle Streaker quickly became a sensation, with people around the world tuning in to watch the bizarre event unfold on TV. The police, however, were less amused, and they began to pursue the naked man. Despite the efforts of the police, the Seattle Streaker managed to evade them for over an hour, running through the city and dodging their attempts to catch him. One big way he got national attention was for streaking across the field during the Seattle Mariners baseball game. But eventually, the police were able to apprehend him and they took him into custody. It turned out the Seattle Streaker was a 23-year-old. Unfortunately, he had a history of substance abuse and some mental health issues, and he claimed that he had run naked through the streets as a form of protest against the government. He was eventually charged with multiple counts of indecent exposure and disorderly conduct, and he spent several months in jail. But his bizarre stunt made him something of a legend in the city, and people still talk about the Seattle Streaker to this day. He was eventually caught and charged, of course, but it was just a little streaking. While streaking is not uncommon, I guess doing so through the streets for over an hour and in a packed stadium during a major league game is definitely out of the ordinary. Finally, we have the Snohomish Treehouse Burglar of 2012. This strange story happened in Snohomish County, Washington, and it involves a man who broke into people's tree houses and stole their belongings. It all started in the summer of 2012 when the residents of Snohomish County began to notice their tree houses were being broken into at all times of the day and night. The thief would steal everything from camping gear and electronics to sentimental items like family heirlooms and children's toys. The residents were freaked out, of course, and their measures to catch the thief were largely unsuccessful. These poor people even slept in their tree houses to try and catch the burglar in the act. But despite their efforts, the Snohomish Treehouse Burglar remained uncaught. He continued to break into tree houses pretty much at will throughout the summer of 2012. He stole whatever he could find. The police eventually got involved and launched an investigation into the case. They were able to identify the Snohomish Treehouse Burglar as a 29-year-old man. This man had a history of drug and alcohol abuse and had recently been released from prison. They finally caught him in September of 2012. He was arrested and charged with multiple counts of burglary and theft, and people's tree houses were safe once again. It turned out this suspect had broken into over 20 tree houses in the Snohomish County area, and he stole thousands and thousands of dollars worth of items. He claimed that he did it to support his drug habit. Eventually, the stolen items were returned to their rightful owners. But this strange case left many people in the area feeling violated and angry. This case is another reminder that not all burglars are created equal, and some are willing to go to extraordinary lengths to avoid detection. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in to the Mayhemporium, the podcast that explores the unusual, the spooky, and the bizarre. If you have suggestions for future episodes or know of any other crazy crimes, please reach out to us and leave a voicemail for the show. Until next time, stay safe and stay out of stolen airplanes, people's driveways, major league stadiums, and tree houses.